Let's kick this off talking about your new single, "Sit Next to Me." What
Right.
inspired the song, and what message are you hoping to convey with it?
What inspired it, to be honest with you, was the groove. When my guy Excel is a two-time Grammy-winning producer out of Chicago. He's produced for Kanye and Ellie Chopper, Wiz Khalifa, Shauna, um, just a list of people that he's produced tracks for. And we have been going back and forth with some music, but once I heard that track, I was like, this is me. It kind of just gave me that vibe. And I was able to kind of lay into it the way that I think a lot of people are familiar with me because a lot of people know me from Tupac's "I Get Around" or "Freaks of the Industry" or even "Kiss You Back." So most of the songs that I'm most known for are more like the laid back, smoother tip, right? And that track reminded me of that when I first heard it. And the hook was already there, "Can't sit next to me." And so I kind of went into it with the attitude of, you know what? You can't sit next to me. I'm that fly. like you can't hold my water, basically. And the underlying message is that's how you should always be when you come in a situation. Remain confident. Don't let anybody tell you that you are not that guy or that girl, whoever it is, and just even when it makes people uncomfortable, don't dummy down your confidence or your intelligence or whatever it is that you have.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then I'm working on this track. What was the production and writing process like, and collaborating with Guapdad and Xcelence on this track?
All right, so me and XL, we had actually done a song before. We had recorded this song that actually is going to be on the album. I'm gonna release it later, but a song we did called Kumo D, like the rapper Kumo D.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of like an ode to Kumo D. Basically, how you like me now. I had to do my Kumo D on them. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, that's what's up.
yeah, when I do the video, and what's crazy is I sent the track to Kumo D, and just to get his approval, and he liked the track. So if I ever do shoot a video for it, I'm gonna probably try to go to New York and have him do a special guest appearance in the video. And what I hope to do is to get some younger dancers to recreate the dance that he did in "How You Like Me Now." Kind
Okay.
of dressed the same way, but fly like now, but like recreate or update the Kumo D dance for the video. But anyway,
Okay.
so we had did that, and he had sent me some other tracks, and like I said, when I heard it, I knew it was me. And I just, I had him send me the stems because he's in Chicago. I'm here in Southern California. He sent me the stems.
Mm.
And as I was recording it, I was like, man, you know what? And me and Guapdad, we had always talked about doing some music together, me, him, and Young Hump from Digital Underground. And I was like, this song sounds like Guap because his delivery is the same way that mine was in the song. So it was kind of like it was perfect for him. If I was ever going to do a song with Guap, this is the style of song that I wanted to record with him. Something that's in his wheelhouse and in his element. So I hit him up, and as soon as he heard the track, he was like, "Bet!" He jumped on that thing and sent it back to me. And shout out to my guy Mike Frankie, who um, who mixed the record. Mike Frankie he's an OG in the music game as far as engineers. He's engineered for going way back to the Spinners and you know,
Oh wow.
he goes back to the 80s with engineering records. So he's engineered some big records with some big artists. And he's a friend of mine as well. So I pulled him into the project. And then lastly, it was mastered by my guy Dyer Lansky out in Los Angeles. So, I feel like I put an all-star team together to make this record. So I'm very pleased with how it came out.
Okay, cool. Now, releasing the single, what inspired you to release it on the Web3 platform Gala? And how is Web3 changing the music industry landscape, in your opinion?
Well, I've been in the Web3 space for several years now. Um, I want to say since about 2020, so about 4 years. So, and I've always been on the cusp of the very verge of releasing an NFT or NFT music project. So I had all of these ideas and ways that I know that it could work. So when I was presented with the opportunity to work with Gala, especially since good friends of mine, um, Layla Steinberg and Ray Love, who brought me over there, you know, I consider them family. So it's always great when you can do business with, you know, good business with family. So I was just excited to work with them to finally get to do an NFT project the way that I wanted to do it. I checked out Gala's platform and they it felt like the perfect marriage to release the project with them.
Okay. Now you mentioned Layla Steinberg, and she's
Sure.
obviously Tupac's former manager.
Correct.
Um, Talk about your relationship with Layla Steinberg and how the opportunity to release "Sit Next to Me" through Gala came about.
Um, like I said, well, Layla's and mine relationship has um always been one of trust and respect, meaning she did bring Tupac to Digital Underground. And, you know, I I respected how she handled that whole situation and the way that Pac and Ray and all of them came through was through, her poetry and her workshops that she continued to do even up until I don't she might still do them, I believe. But a lot of artists have come through there. And so she's nurtured many artists and I saw the work or I've over the years the work that she put in with these artists. So I always respected that. And and I'm hoping and assuming, it was the same way, seeing the work that me, Shock, and H and all of us with Digital Underground, how we kind of carried it through. And then even through our if you want to call them our lean years, when we weren't say at the pinnacle, but we still pushed, we still remained a touring group. And um although Shock is the face of Digital Underground and Humpty Hump. Anybody within our collective will tell you, I'm, if not a lot of the soul of Digital Underground. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. So I've always represented it to the fullest and made sure that I did the things that I hoped would keep us on track. I was always the person that was probably the most social. I like to talk.
Right.
So, I was out there making friends and kissing babies and shaking hands and all that stuff while Shock would just make the music and make sure the art was on point. So that's kind of how we worked together. And I'm sure Layla saw that. So she know how passionate, dedicated, and hard I work on anything that I do. So I'm sure she was um, comfortable in bringing me in. And shout out to Ray Love because without Ray Love, I wouldn't even be over there because he's the one that brought me into this situation.
Okay, cool. Now switching gears for a minute. Rest in peace to Shock G.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how did you guys meet and ultimately become the legendary group Digital Underground that we all know and love? How did those initial beginnings happen with you guys?
We met in the Bay Area. Shock is from Tampa, Florida, by way of New York. So he didn't grow up in the Bay like I did. Me and Fuse. So me and Fuse, we were a group and another cat named Mac Moan called Raw Fusion. Well, we were
Mhm.
MGM at the time. I'm not sure if we had changed our name, but anyway, we were shopping our demo and doing talent shows and trying to get on. At the same time, there was this group, Digital Underground, that had a single Underwater Rhymes out. This is like 1988, and we were on the same show circuit. They had a record out that they were promoting, and we were doing these shows trying to get a record out. But because we were from the Bay Area, we sort of had a built in following, right? And DJ Fuse was at the time probably one of the hottest DJs in the Bay Area at the time, if not the, right? And Digital Underground needed a DJ. So a meeting was set up so that they could try to convince Fuse to be their DJ. But, Fuse and I, we rock like that. So we were, you know, he was loyal to me. We were loyal to each other. So he's like, look, I rock with y'all, but we're a group. If you mess with me, you got to mess with him. And that's kind of like how I got in. Because at the time, me and Shock had conversations, but he wasn't very fond of West Coast rappers at the time. Just the way we talked and all. He thought we all sounded the same. So it wasn't like when he heard me, he didn't think I was an okay rapper because he said if he thought I was whack, he wouldn't agree to it. Um, but I had to get in there and do my thing, and finally be accepted. That's just how it was.
So how did you change Shock's mind about West Coast rappers? Because I'd never heard that before, that he initially didn't like West Coast hip hop or West Coast rap. So
He just
what was that?
didn't like he just wasn't fond of, because like I say, he's from the East Coast. So he's just used to
Hmm.
that New York slang, that New York talk. And then him being in Tampa, I'm pretty sure he growing up in Tampa, he probably pushed that New York line growing up to try to separate himself. When your parents is from somewhere, you kind of you're like, yeah, I'm from
Yeah,
over here. So he
right.
finally got out to California, and all he heard was Too Short and your NWAs and whatnot. So super. He just wasn't very fond of that. And
Okay.
later when we talked, he's like, it wasn't like he didn't hate it, and he didn't hate the production style, because think about it, on the West Coast we liked a lot of funk, Parliament, funkadelic, and funky bass lines, and that's what Shock was all about. So we he fit in very well, even with Underwater Rhymes, which was the first single, used the bass line to Herbie Hancock, Chameleon, doom, 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 doom,
Yeah.
doom, 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 doom. He used that, and then obviously he had, Underwater Boogie.
Hmm.
Yeah. So he wasn't like, it wasn't a disdain for it. He just said he wasn't checking for it like that.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
And,
So
you know, and I don't know what was the point where it was just like, oh, okay, I get it. It's kind of just like over time, you just, when you work with somebody, you become close. When you basically living with somebody, and you guys have the same goals and dreams and aspirations, right? So we're a group now. So it's all for one for all. And I think the closeness came from that. And then as far as loving each other's style of hip hop, that probably came came along as it went. Because if I wanted to be totally honest, I wasn't like a super fan of his rapping either. I liked his production, and we would talk about it. So I'm not bitter,
right. So so you guys become Digital Underground,
right?
and you start putting together the Sex Packets album.
Yep.
Walk me through putting together that debut album and how you guys came up with the Digital Underground sound.
Um, I think the sound came. Well, Shock, he sort of had a vision of what he wanted, right? He had like a
Hmm.
skeleton of it. Like, even I remember when we had a meeting about what the Digital Underground dress code and how we were going to conduct ourselves. So, he made like a little, because he was an artist. So he had like a little cartoon book where, you know, we always had to be seen with dark sunglasses on if we were out in the daytime. And we always had to wear black and all this shit. And it was like, it was real serious. And this was our initial code that we were supposed to abide by. Musically, I think, he had an idea of what he wanted, but I think it all came together with all of us sort of like interjecting our influences, you know, like Shock was all about Parliament, the funk, and jazz. Um, DJ Fuse, you know, he had a background. He had a lot of, you know, he had the Van Halen records and the rock, and he, you know, and him and Shock could kind of be on the same page talking about Jimi Hendrix and things like that. Me, you know, I was straight up boom bap hip hop dude. You know, I had all the records at the time, the break beats, and and I was heavy into like dancehall reggae. So, you know, some of that influence came in. Plus, you know, growing up around my dad who loved Prince, Michael Jackson, Marvin Gaye, you know, I had all of that influence. Child Master Jay, his dad was a known jazz musician in the Bay Area. So
Mm,
we all had our influences, but we all could connect on some level on each of our influences. You know what I mean?
yep.
And just that blend of us being in the studio every day. Shop would let be. What do you think about that? Hey, let's try that. He'll try it. If you brought it to the table, if he didn't like it, he'd pull it out. But he try it. Or he'll say, hey man, come and say this. And I'll say, hey, I think it'd be better if I say it like that. And sometimes, you know, then we'll do it. So it was definitely a collaboration, but the main vision was Shocks for sure. And the for that first album.
Okay. Now, one of my favorite tracks off that album is obviously Freaks of the Industry. I know a lot of people like Do What You Like and the Humpty Dance and those tracks,
My
but
favorite too
I
off that album.
yeah, yeah, I like Freaks of the Industry. So, and the use of Donna Summer's "Love to Love You, Baby" was genius for that record. Um, Tell me about putting that song together and how you guys came up with the concept for Freaks of the Industry.
Right. So you know that's not the first version of the song. Right.
No, I did not know that.
Okay, so when you listen, the original beat that we used was Diana Ross, um, A Love Hangover. That's why we go, if there's a cure for this, we don't want it.
Yeah.
It was off that beat, but we couldn't clear the sample. And then, and it was a much slower tempo. And then we tried, um, who sings that song, Masquerade? Is either George Benson or Tom Jones or something like that.
Yeah, I can't
If
remember.
Masquerade. It's like a jazzy kind of song. It was popular. We
Yeah.
tried that. He wouldn't clear the sample. He was a Jehovah Witness and he didn't like rap. So the Donna Summers was like the last, you know, we were leaving to go to Europe for our very first tour, like the next day. We recorded that right before we left. And when we got the record, I want to say the original tempo was like 69 BPM. And the Donna Summer one that you love is like 96. So it's much faster. So I remember having to rap it to the, you know, the one that's on the record. And I
Hmm.
didn't think anybody would like it because I was like, I was so used to hearing the slower version that I thought it was too fast and that nobody was going to dig it. We left to Europe. And while we were in Europe for 2 or 3 months, the record came out, came back, and the rest was history.
Oh wow. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I didn't know a lot of that stuff. So that's cool.
So if you go online, or even I could have Talia send it to you. But so what we did was, because we couldn't clear those records, we actually put out a promo DJ promo vinyl with all three versions on it. So you can actually look up the other two versions, the original versions of Freaks of the Industry.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. I did not know that. That's
Yes,
cool.
sir.
Um, Same song.
Mhm.
Tupac's recording debut on the this is an EP release in '91. Um, First of all, when did Tupac enter the scene with you guys, and what were your first thoughts and impressions of Pac?
Um, shoot, Pot came, you know, Pot came like shortly after we all got together because it's just that he had his own group. Remember, Layla used to manage him, and him and Ray and DJ Diz, they were a group called Strictly Dope. So they
Hmm.
were signed to TNT Records with that Digital Underground was signed to. So even as we were um doing the video for Do What You Like and the Humpty Dance, they were right there. They were part of our collective. They just weren't he just wasn't in the group officially, but he was around. So by the time, 1990, when we did our first US tour and Atron asked if we could bring him out, he was already part of the crew, but just wasn't officially in the group. It's kind of like if you know that, the DLC was unofficially a member of NWA. He was there at the very beginning and he helped write the album, but Dr. Dre wanted to keep him separate because he envisioned the DLC's career. He was like, he was that dope, right?
Right.
So if you go and look at all the NWA videos, the DLC is in all of those videos. So it was just like that with Pac. He was always around. He just wasn't in the group officially. But 1990, our very first U.S. national tour was the first time that we took him out, and that was Big Daddy Kane tour. And then once we went out on that tour, it was kind of like that's when things started rolling, and we just kind of everything just started to take off. So he got to be a part of all of that as we were ascending, right? So when we recorded the same song in 91, it's just that he was part of the crew. When we got the opportunity to do that record, we need that verse, Tupac. That's how that.
Yeah, that's dope. And then the music video, and I remember this video very clearly, and it incorporating the scenes from the movie Nothing But Trouble. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was dope. Um, but then you guys actually got Dan Aykroyd to physically feature in the video.
Yep.
What was that like working with him on set?
Oh, it was dope. If you go see the video, Dan Aykroyd's in it. Dr. Dre and Easy E are in the video. Another one of the actors from the movie, the Hispanic guy, I don't remember his name. He's in it. Um, but you know, the time that we spent on set, they were all super cool. We got them hang out with Dan Aykroyd, John Candy, Chevy Chase, and they were just all cool, funny, down to earth. They took time to come and hang out with us. Um, Demi Moore was in that movie, but we didn't get to meet her because she wasn't in any of our scenes. But all the
Hmm,
other guys, we got to hang out with them. It was pretty cool.
that's what's up. And then that was going to be my next question about Dre and Easy. Tell me the backstory on that because that seemed kind of, I don't want to say out of place, but wasn't expecting to see Dr. Dre and Easy E in the same song video. So what's the backstory on that?
Well, our manager and the guy who started TNT Records, H. and Gregory, he got his start working for Jerry Heller and Ruthless Records. So he used to road
Hmm,
manage for Ruthless. So that's how he made his money to be able to start his label to start Digital Underground
hmm,
is being a road manager. So even when we were coming out, whenever any of the Ruthless Records, JJ Fad, NWA, DLC, whenever any of them were around, we were around them because Atron was working with them. So, we got to kind of see what that was like. We'd be backstage at these big arena concerts and seeing what that's like and, get invited to their video shoots when we're in LA. And, they all came to our album release party in San Francisco. And when we did that video, because we shot it in LA, um, on the I forget what studio we shot the video at, but he asked them to come and they came through.
that's what's up. So have you ever done anything with Dre over the years or no?
Musically,
Yeah,
um, well, Shock played our part on We're All in the Same Game, which was produced by Dr. Dre.
right.
And I know that Dre was a fan of Shock's production. Um, I know Dre, but I can't think or know that I've ever recorded on any of his tracks.
Okay. All right. The next album I was going to talk about was the Sons of the P album. And
Mm,
my favorite song off that record is the Kiss You Back record.
yep.
You and Shock G kind of trading bars over Funkadelic's Not
Make it
Just Knee Deep sample.
Yep.
Yeah. So what do you remember about making that song and the I call it a feel good music video? What do you what do you remember about that song and that video?
Um, the song, I just remember, like I said, at the time we were popping. Like Humpty Dance was like double, either the single was double platinum and the album was platinum, and we were doing all these tours. And when we did that record, Shock was, he had asked me, pulled me to the side and asked me, did I think that the record was too pop? Like, what did it sound too R&B ish or whatever? He was afraid that we were moving away from, you know, whatever that meant. And I was like, bro, you better put me on that song. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
knew it was a hit when he played the beat. I was like, oh yeah, we doing this. So, and it's like that, vice versa. Sometimes, you know, I was originally against, I wasn't a super fan of Do What You Like when we first recorded it. And
Mm,
that's why I'm not on the song as much as I could have been, because he was asking me to do it. And I was like, now I love the song. So sometimes, you just need the other person to be like, nah, it's going to be all right. You know
all
what I
right.
mean? And that's what it was. Now, the video, what was amazing about that is if you go back and watch the video, I'm only in the first part where like I'm in the shower with the girls and I'm in the room with the girls and whatnot.
Yeah.
And even though I'm dancing and smiling, it was a 2 day shoot. I was there one day, and bro, I was like, I had the flu so bad I could barely stand up. I just mustered enough energy to smile and do what I needed to do for
Oh
those
man.
scenes. But when I left, I couldn't even get up to come to the video shoot the next day. So that's why you don't see me in any of the outside scenes or
Oh
the
man.
second day shots. So I was just there briefly, sick as a dog. But I made it look good for the gram.
Yeah, no doubt. You didn't get none of them girls sick, did you?
Probably.
Kissing on them.
No, I wasn't kissing nobody that day. I was good.
So, um, in addition to your work with Digital Underground, obviously you worked with Pac on the Tupacalypse Now album, on the song Violent. You also did I Get Around from the sophomore album, and then Above the Laws, Call It What You Want. What was it like to see Pac go from the backup dancer for the group to the incredible solo success he had as an artist and as an actor?
I mean, um, all of us within the group, I don't think any of us were very surprised. For one, he, you know, from day one, he exuded that confidence, right? And it's what he wanted. And to up to this day, I've never met anybody um, with that much who had the work ethic and the drive that Tupac had. So all the things that he said he wanted to do, we knew that he wasn't going to stop until he did those things. So, we were just in awe watching it all unfold, but none of us were surprised at the things that were happening because we knew the work that he put in. We knew, you know, um, his dedication and everything that he that he sacrificed to be where he got. So for us, it was more just like it was a beautiful thing, and it was you never expect your friend to become a global icon, but as
Right.
far as just having the success that he had, you know, by the time he got to death row, we weren't, we were expecting that much success.
Okay. All right. And so my last question about Tupac is, what do you remember about the day that Pac died? What's your memory of that moment?
I think my biggest memory from that moment, one is that, back then we had like the alphanumeric pagers. And so everybody didn't have a cell phone that you could just pick up and call, right? So you get a page and, you go check to see what was up. Well, that one day, I was getting pages from people I hadn't talked to in years, and everybody was paging me. And I was like, what the hell is going on? But it wasn't until my mother paged me that as soon as I saw her page, it was like, you all right? Call me. I knew what I just knew what was up.
Mm,
And so what I remember most about that day is just we all, all of us met at the studio. We just kind of uh, consoled each other and just reminisce. We were all together that night.
yeah.
That's what I remember. When I say
Okay.
together, Digital Underground, me, Shop, Clee, all of us
Yeah.
that were in the group.
Okay. So bringing it back around to the single "Sit Next to Me." What are the plans in the future? Because you said earlier, building an album together. What's that look like? What's the upcoming album from Money B look like?
Okay, so once again, so the I've been doing tracks with Excel, and I got this idea like, how long has it been since we've had a concept album? Where, because now for a long time, people would do albums and they would just, especially with labels, you just reach for the hot producer. So you got a Dr. Dre track, a Timberland track, a this guy track, or that guy track. It just sounds like a compilation, no
Right.
continuity. This one track just sounds way different than the other track. So, I came up with an idea, and I presented it to Excel. I was like, bro, let's do a concept album where it's your production and me curating, the songs and the features, and we're gonna call it Midway. Midway is the airport on the west side of Chicago, so it's
Hmm.
sort of like that's the bridge, the connection between Oakland and Chicago, West Coast and Midwest, and to also show that it's not even that different, right? Because a lot of people that here sit next to me assume because I'm from the Bay Area that that's a Bay Area track, but it's not. Bro, it's from Chicago.
Yeah.
It's but that's how alike we are. But there's a continuity when you have the same production style, right? I have the same um well, between two engineers that mixed the record, but the other engineer that mixed also mastered the record. So it's all the entire collection is coming from the same place. And there's a
Mm.
story that we're telling behind it with, Midway. So I had a friend of mine, um, who's an artist. He did a piece for the cover. So it's a canvas piece. You know how you had Marvin Gaye, uh I forget which album that was. It's the same picture that's on Good Times, with them all
Okay.
dancing in the shack. It's called the Sugar Shack. It's the
Yep.
same in that same vein. I had him do a piece representing Midway, that connection. So I told him, I said, don't make me an album cover, make me a piece of art that you would show in one of your exhibits or put on your wall and that we could sell, as content. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
a lot was put into the making of this. It's you know, it's a curated art piece. It's even the features on it. So Guapdad is from Oakland, but the only two other features, no, three other features. The other feature is Young Hump, who's my partner in rhyme, a Digital Underground,
Hmm.
and Cold Heart. You remember the group Crucial Conflict?
Yep. Sure
Back in the
do.
day, hey, he's on the
Yep.
he's on the record. As a matter of fact, I just came back from Chicago shooting a video like 2 weeks ago or a couple of weeks ago. And then there's a new artist named Sweet Juices, female MC. She's dope, and and those are the only features that are on this record. And so it's strictly Chicago, Oakland. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's the concept, and the story that I'm telling, even with the songs, is I made sure that we all talk our shit, right? But I made sure that on the record, I'm not, at least try not to lead anybody on any detrimental paths, right?
Okay.
We talk our shit, but you know what I'm saying, like, um, and I would say that's a maturation I believe that I have, because some of the stuff, back in the day, talking on some of these records, I was real reckless,
Yeah.
you know. um, I try to be very mindful of things that I say. I still talk that shit, but I don't say just ridiculous stuff, telling people to commit crimes and do these
Right.
drugs that I don't do or I wouldn't have let my child do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Still like to have a good time. Still, pop it like I pop it, but
Right.
you know, I I I I think it's appropriate for me, because I'm older, right? So, if I was to go out and be like, yeah, yeah, I'm in the club every night, you wouldn't believe it because I don't hang out in clubs. I'm too old for that shit.
Right. Right.
I'll be at football practice with my 10-year-old, which is happening very soon. No,
Yep. So, in working on this album, um what's your creative process when you get in the studio with Xcelence and you're, like you said, you're curating this album as it's developing. But what's that creative process that Money B goes through when he's recording?
it's different for every record. So, but first and foremost, I gotta feel it, right? Now, sometimes I'll give you an example. So I told you how how Sit Next to Me was made, right?
Hmm.
Um, Xcelence, he sent me the beat with the hook already on it, and I love the groove, and I just the style it just came out of me, right? It was just something that I just felt, right? But then you go to a record like Hate That, which is the record I did with Sweet Juices, who's who's the new artist that I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
I told her to pick. I sent her a couple of beats that I liked, and I told her pick the beat that she wants to be on, and then she actually came up with the cadence and the rhyme style and the hook, and
Hmm.
then I followed her lead on that record, right?
Okay.
Totally
Yeah.
different from Sit Next to Me. Then you go with to a song, um, GFT, which um, which the one I did with Cold Hard. It was a totally different process, meaning the song idea is a song that I had been wanting to do. I just didn't know what beat that I wanted to do it on. And I had an idea. I was in my mind, I was like, I need a beat like this. But when I heard the beat that we recorded it on, I just tried it and believe it or not, I said, let me just try it on this beat. And it worked. And then I sent that record to Cold Hard and told him to fill in the blanks. But this is how we're doing it. So each record is recorded. Um, it's unique. The process is unique with all of the records. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there's one record on the album that's not produced by Excel, and that's the song I did with Young Hump, and that's produced by the Mechanics. Are you familiar with the Mechanics out of the
I
Bay?
am familiar with the can. Yeah,
Yeah, so you know
they're
how to
dope. I
get a
love them.
mechanic. You can't be Bay if you ain't got a mechanics beat. You got to go
Yeah.
to the shop and get a tune up. And
Yeah,
of
no, they're
course,
dope.
a lot of people don't know that Four Racks and the Mechanics come from the Digital Underground family. Four Racks was our DJ back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Before
Oh,
I
wow.
remember when him and Kenny Tweed got together. So that's
Hmm.
those are my little brothers for sure. So I
Okay.
had to
No, that's dope.
so so it's the Mechanics producing the track, but to me it's basically it's the one Digital Underground track on the album because you got Young Hump, you got the Mechanics who are all part of our Digital Underground collective, and it definitely exudes that Bay Area vibe for sure. It's all the way Bay.
Yeah. So, what was it like working with the mechanics on that record? What was the name of the song again?
It's called Dumb Out.
Got me out. Okay. So, what was it like working
DUMB.
with the mechanics?
I mean, that's family. So I mean, we've been working together so long. It's just like one of them things. You you have some gloves that fit on your favorite pajamas.
Yeah.
It's comfortable. We get in and we just do what we do.
Okay. Cool. So with sitting next to me, coming out on Gala Music, is there going to be an opportunity for that single to become on the regular digital streaming platforms as well, or
Yes.
physical release?
So it's the NFT and the single is exclusive to Gala Music for the first month or 30 days. But it'll remain on the platform non exclusive. Now, even though it's going to go to wider and other DSPs, the unique thing about purchasing the DSP, I mean purchasing the NFT on Gala, is that with the NFT there's utility. So if you're a holder of the music token, then you'll have access to backstage and meet and greet privileges and certain merch and exclusive unreleased tracks just by holding that token. Now, after the 30
Nice.
days, it'll be available on the other DSPs, but it's just like any other streaming um, song that you would get on Amazon, Spotify, or whatever. But
Okay.
it'll still remain on Gala as well.
Okay. All right. Cool. One of the last questions I have for you is you've ventured out obviously beyond music with all the other endeavors that you're doing, but one specifically um, that I like that you're doing is the Shock G Forever Golden Ale that you launched in
Me too.
2021. Talk about that venture, honoring Shock G's legacy and what that means to you.
Um, it means a lot, right? So we did it first in 2021 when he passed, sort of as as like paying homage, a memorial, right?
Hmm.
And the way that we curated the flavor profiles and just everything about it was all about what we thought one that Shock would love or what reminded us of Shock. Meaning we knew Shock used to drink like, he liked lighter beers and he would drink ales as well. He wasn't really a super dark beer drinker, right?
Hmm.
So we made sure it did have to have a lighter color to it. He loved popcorn, right? So not only did we make sure that it had to go with popcorn and have a hint of it, but also the popcorn on the label, right? Um, One of the songs from his solo album, Shockwaves, or is it Fear of a Mixed Planet? But no, Fear of a Mixed Planet. I'm sorry. Um, is a song called Cherry Flavored Email, right? Sort of like his answer to Strawberry Letter 23 by the Isley
Yeah.
Brothers, right? So we gave it a hint of cherry, gave it some citrus, right? So all of these different things we made sure. And then the artwork for the can was done by um, another guy in our collective, Chuck Tallstar or Chuck Taylor, right? He did the art for the label. He's the MC in our crew, and the label won Best Beer Label in USA Today for 2023, right? And it was a limited
That's
run
dope.
at first, but it sold out in a week, and everybody was asking about it. And then finally, I was like, you know what? We let a year pass. I guess 2 years now, right? Talking
Hmm.
about it, but now we're releasing it, and it's here to stay. So we definitely hope that it becomes a staple.
Let me get you to do one last thing for me.
Oh
Can you give me a shout out?
no,
Um,
not
no,
just playing.
what? Come on, man. The name's Chad Kiser,
Uh,
um, and the podcast is Conversations with Chad.
Ready?
Yep, whenever you are.
What up? It's your man Money B from Digital Underground, repping the Bay all day, and I'm kicking it with the homie Chad on Conversations with Chad. That's right. We talk a lot and we walk a lot. You bitch. One
All
more.
right. Okay, go ahead.
What up? It's your man Money B from Digital Underground, and I want everybody to check out my single "Sit Next to Me" because Chad is gonna play it right here on Conversations with Chad. You know.